women who are menstruating or men who have emissions not being part of like Holy Communion. And that kind of got my brain percolating on why are young girls not allowed to serve as an altar girl? It's like, if the Theotokos served in this way, why can't, my Orthodox daughter who's not menstruating yet? And then kind of a related field of, in the conversation is, why do young boys process around the holy table at their 40-day blessing, but girls are not taken past the iconostasis at the 40-day blessing?
Right.
So non-controversial questions.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Sarah. So I want to take the second one because this is actually something I've researched. Yeah, it's shocking. So here's the thing. There is a variety of practices between different Orthodox traditions on that point. Indeed, yes. A lot of people are not aware of that because, most of us tend to go to one parish most of the time, and that's not something, when you do visit another parish, it may not be something you see happening at that other parish, right? So most of us tend to be exposed to only one way of doing that. But the reality is that there are, I'm aware of at least 3 different versions of that. So there's one version in which at the 40-day prayers that no one is brought behind through into the holy place. Neither boys nor girls. I'm also aware of the practice which you described, which is that boys only are brought back there and then brought around and then handed back to the mother, right? But there is also a practice where both boys and girls are brought through the deacon's door, brought round behind the altar, and then brought out the other deacon's door and brought back to the mother. And I guess that might surprise you that is the case in some churches. If you were to look at, for instance, the most recent official service book from the Antiochian Orthodox Christian Archdiocese of North America that covers that is the practice that is indicated in that book. And there's a whole bunch of notes in the back about how that's not something that the people who put that book together made up. It is, in fact, a well-attested historical practice, actually. And that it seems like the limitation to only boys seems to be a somewhat later development. Now, all that being said, I am in no way laying down any kind of judgment or criticism on any particular version of that. Every priest, you should do what your bishop tells you to do. So, and if they're not doing what their bishop tells them to do, well, that's between them and their bishop and not my business. But so the question then is like, what's the point of bringing a person back there at that moment? Right? Because a lot of times people have this sense of, okay, only boys are allowed to go back. And some have this sense, all males are allowed to go back there and no females may ever, right? But clearly this historical practice of bringing baby girls and boys back there would seem to violate that kind of general idea, right? The point of bringing babies back there is that they are being offered to God. That's what's going on there. Some will say only boys can go back there because, well, someday they might be priests. And I understand the idea behind that argument, but the truth is that the vast majority of them will not. The vast majority of them will not. It does not make much sense to me. And maybe when someone disagrees with me on that point, but it does not make much sense to me to say, well, we'll bring them all back there in the hopes that 1 out of 10,000, whatever, them will actually, get ordained. And nothing in the prayers that are said, whatever version, because there's multiple sets of prayers between different traditions. None of them say anything about the possibility of that person being ordained. It's all about offering this child to God, just as was done with the Lord Jesus on his 40th day. So that's my response to that. I do the practice that my bishop gave me to do, and that is in the book that is officially promulgated by him, and that's what everyone should be doing. But there is some variety in that practice. I do not encourage you to go to your priest and say, I expect you to do this now because I found out there's another way. Please don't do that. No one listening to this, please don't do that. Don't do that. I'm in favor of liturgical variety. I think it's okay. So yeah, that's like I said, I looked this up. I actually wrote an article about it that is on my blog. it's a really interesting thing. And to me, what's really beautiful about it is whatever practice is being done, the point is to offer this child to God, however it's being expressed, right? And again, it's an imitation of our Lord's being offered on his 40th day. So if that makes sense to you, then I'm going to kick the more controversial thing over to Father Stephen and let him cover that question.
Yeah, so I can grumpy old man all over it.
Yeah.
No, so it's worth noting that the Theotokos went into the Holy of Holies, but she didn't go back there on the Day of Atonement and assist the high priest. She wasn't sort of serving as a liturgical assistant.
Okay.
But so first of all, the thing we need to break is this idea that an insane number of Orthodox people have, that is that men are allowed behind the iconostasis and women aren't, because that's not true.
Yeah.
At all, like in any form. There's no element of that is true. The actual rule is that no one is allowed behind the iconostasis unless they're there for a purpose for which they've been blessed by the bishop. Right?
Okay.
So I'm a priest. So as a priest, I am blessed by the bishop to go back there to celebrate services. I don't go back there and hang out and like watch YouTube videos on my phone. Right? Like in the sanctuary, right? It's not like a privilege that I have to go back there. I'm only to go back there when I'm preparing for or celebrating or cleaning up after one of the services, right? Of that I have been blessed to celebrate. If you go to a convent, most convents, when they have a priest or a bishop come to do services, there are certain nuns, usually elderly, well-established nuns, who are designated, who will assist the priest behind the iconostasis.
Yep. The other example, I would say the other example I like to give is that during the Byzantine imperial period, at least sometimes I know, the empress would actually, I don't know if she went through the holy doors in the middle,
yes,
but she certainly, she went right through the holy doors to go receive communion.
At the altar.
At the altar, just like the clergy. Well, maybe not just like, but pretty similar. Pretty similar.
Yeah. Right. So that's not the rule. The reason why we have altar boys in regular parish practice, right, as opposed to like in a convent, there aren't other men around to assist or to clean or to do those things. So particular women are designated for that task by the bishop, right? The reason we have altar boys in parish practice is that contrary to our this is where I go grumpy old man. Our current modern practice is, doesn't he look cute in his little Stacarian? Let's get a picture of him. Oh, look, he's carrying the big fan. Oh, he's so cute. Right. That's not why, right? That's not why. And it's not even really just because the priest needs help. It's because for most of the history of the church, they didn't have seminaries and they didn't have diaconal courses by mail and late vocations programs, right? They didn't have any of that. So the way people learned to become subdeacons and deacons and priests was by celebrating the services. And so the idea was that you're training the next generation of deacons and priests and subdeacons, right, to serve at the altar. So I, being a grumpy old man, have been known to tell people that if you're one of those folks who by no means wants your child to be clergy, do not send them back to serve at altar.
There you go.
That's what it's for.
Okay.
So
that is really helpful.
Yay. I love it when people make that sound. That's good.
I have lots to think on now. Thank you so much for taking my very off-topic question. I very much appreciate it.
Well, when I saw it on the call board, I was like, okay, this is not on topic. But, it's something I know something about. So here we go.
And you're calling from what my people have long considered the promised land.
There you go.
So that being the state of Michigan.
It's a great place. It's
and
a great
me being
place.
Dutch.
Here, Michigan.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in.